Welcome to the Pindown, your Detroit Pistons podcast. I'm your host, Wes Davenport from Motor City Hoops and Detroit Bad Boys.
And I'm Blake Silverman, writer for Detroit Bad Boys, covering everything Pistons, and news writer for Sports Illustrated.
Blake, we almost made it, man. Next week's Media Day. We're really coming up to it. I mean, I don't know when you guys are listening to the show on the podcast recording, but we're recording here on a Thursday afternoon, and just a few more days until we really get rolling with usual NBA news and fun stuff, and I can't wait.
Yeah, it'll be nice. The off season, I feel like we were always just talking about what's going on, like what are we going to talk about on the show. There's not much going on, but even though the Pistons didn't have a high draft pick, I feel like the off season had a lot going on. Honestly, I mean, for better or for worse, with the Malik Beasley stuff, that was sort of a news story. It still is a news story with him unsigned, but then all the acquisitions, things like that. But yeah, we're almost to media day. We're almost to training camp, so we don't need to talk about like ESPN rankings anymore or anything like that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's how it always kind of goes, right? You go in expecting a slower paced offseason, no first round pick. You don't think they're going to be all that active in free agency. And then all of a sudden you get the Malik Beasley news. They got to make a few signings and all, we're talking about fitting the puzzle pieces together. But yeah, man, you're right. I mean, it feels like since that New York Knicks final game, we've been talking about how this all might look and piece together for this season. And we're finally getting to it. So before we get into just some like overarching stuff, we're going to talk a little bit about what we're hoping to see at Media Day very briefly. We got a couple of questions we're going to hit on, and then maybe a little bit of talking about some dynamic duos here for the Pistons later on in the show. But wanted to give two brief apologies. One, last week, we did not intend to not have a show, but we figured since we're in the middle of the offseason and there really wasn't much going on, our guy Blake was a little bit under the weather. We figured we'll just kind of push it back to this week. And then, of course, I catch whatever bug Blake must have had. I don't know how you even did that, man, going like 3 hours across state lines and somehow got me sick. So now I've got something too. So I apologize for my voice if I'm coughing. I'm going to try to be on the mute button, but yeah, that's what's going on in behind the scenes for the Pindown over here. So fun stuff.
It's that time of year, unfortunately, but shout out to you, Wes, because you are toughing it out. I did not.
No. Don't give me that credit. If we recorded last week, we would not be recording today. Today would have been the push, and last week would not have been. So don't give me that credit. In fact, it's your fault that I'm pushing through.
Oh man. Well, it's unfortunately that time of year. I feel like something is just going around with the weather changing and school starting again, like we were talking about off air. So yeah, hopefully you're on the mend soon. And sorry if I still sound a little congested. I feel fine, but I feel like I do sound a little congested. So sorry to the listeners as well.
This show's just gonna have that kind of gravelly host sort of sound that you could only get here on the Pindown from Detroit Bad Boys. I think that's a big selling point actually for today's episode. But it's interesting. So getting right down to it, right? Looking at Media Day here, this is a lot less eventful than last year. I mean, last year, if you think about it, remember, we're thinking about, you got Langdon, you got Bickerstaff. Both these guys are new. We haven't had too much time to really get to know them yet. We're kind of getting the vibe from the players off of that really horrific season, the season before. And then now this year, it's a little bit different. I mean, obviously we got the positive vibes, but the storyline is much more on, I guess, kind of buffing out the edges, right? Like what are you looking to see here at Media Day next week?
Yeah, well, broadly, I'm interested to hear what Trajan Langdon has to say. Media Day is one of the few times we get to hear from him over the season. I mean, I know like Omari and some of the other beat reporters, I believe, were able to connect with him at Summer League and talk about some of the acquisitions and stuff like that. But overall, I'm interested to just hear what he's looking for going into year two. I mean, I think we can assume what we're going to get, like just internal growth and just making that next step. And even though this team made a run to the playoffs and made that first round series pretty interesting last year, like what are they looking to take an additional step? I'm interested to see if anyone puts a specific expectation out there. I don't think they will, because I know if I was in that position, that would get dug up later, and I wouldn't want to put myself in that position. So overall, we know this is a year where the front office, the organization is trying to answer a lot of questions. I mean, you have your biggest question pretty much answered with Cade Cunningham, but what's going to fit around him, what we're looking for out of Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren, and then maybe even Asar Thompson as well, because he's going to be extension eligible next summer. We think he's in line for that already. So I'm interested to hear how Langdon is thinking of those questions, and also just like a general update on Jaden Ivey's health. I mean, we haven't heard anything that would bring cause for concern, but I'm sure he'll get asked like if Ivey's ready to go or how he's going to be rolled out or something like that. So interested to hear that as well. And I'm also, I don't know if anyone's going to ask him directly about Malik Beasley, but I would be interested to hear what he would have to say with that, with Malik Beasley still remaining unsigned.
Yeah, I mean, for entertainment purposes, that's got to be up there, right? To just kind of hear, if you could maybe get some insight, right, into how the reaction to all of that kind of played out, because I struggle to believe that completely caught the Pistons off guard. But regardless, I think I'm right there with you. Like for me, I'm looking for benchmarks. Where do they kind of judge success on this upcoming season? Because you could look at it a couple of ways. You could look at outcomes. You could say, we want to be, when you say that we want to be better than we were last year, which is what all the conversation is surely going to be about. What is better, right? Is better being a higher seed in the playoffs? Is it making it to the second round? Or is better just looking at marginal internal improvement that you can kind of bank on moving forward and use to figure out where the next step really is going to come from? Because look, I think that honestly, in my opinion, these Pistons, they could have a worse record next season, but still be a better team. As weird as that is to say, right? Because you never know how some of these things are going to play out injury-wise for other teams, and if you just catch somebody on bad nights and things along those lines. Like, so if we could just be more talented, I guess. Like you can see the steps out of guys like Ivy, Duren, Asar, Ron Holland. To me, I think that's a big win. And then if you get in the playoffs, anything can happen. But I'm really curious to see where, you mentioned Langdon, Bickerstaff too. Like where is the brain trust of this team, their mindset heading into this season in terms of what improvement actually looks like?
Yeah, and overall, I think also I'm interested to hear it a little bit from Cade, and especially how he sees some of the new acquisitions that are coming in, like Duncan Robinson and Karis LeVert, what he has to say about them, about the offseason in general. I mean, Cade made an appearance on that Jimmy Fallon show when he was in Detroit, but it was just mainly about the city and stuff. So it was cool to see him get that like national spotlight and everything. But yeah, I'm interested to hear him get in the weeds a little bit too, commenting on some of the stuff that Langdon will get asked and Bickerstaff will get asked as well. Honestly, I think the vibe should be pretty good going into media day. Like, I feel like there's pressure for certain players and like certain questions that need to be answered, but overall it's not we're going into this with questions at head coach, questions with your star player, questions in the front office. I think overall it's just taking that next step. And it, like you said, it's going to be hard to win the amount of games that this team won last year. Like, we're not going into the new season with 14 wins and looking to get 10 more or whatever it is, like the conversation was last year. So yeah, I'm interested to see how they're gonna deem success and what that benchmark is gonna be. And also with like an open roster spot still there, I'm expecting them to maintain flexibility with that. But maybe we'll get answers on if Langdon thinks there's a specific area this team could get better. I know there's been a lot of talk about backup four, what's gonna happen with backup point guard. So maybe we'll get some thoughts there also.
So one other thing that I think is going to be I don't know if it's really going to be a theme so much so for this media day, but I can almost guarantee it's going to get asked to Langdon, and that's just about the extensions potentially coming the direction of Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren. And there's you actually brought it up. There's kind of a third like lurking variable here, and that would be Ausar Thompson. I mean, Ausar Thompson is one season behind those two guys. I'm looking at the Pistons cap sheet right now. He's got his team option next year, and then he's a restricted free agent in 27, 28. Like, what is that number going to look like? I know you and I have talked in the past about, well, it's probably not going to be huge. He's a defense first guy, but define not huge. Are we still looking at 25 to 30 plus? And if we are, there's a world where in 2 seasons from now, Cade Cunningham and Ausar Thompson together are making on their own about $80 million. Like, this could actually get kind of messy pretty quickly if Ausar has the breakout year that some people are expecting or thinking he might be able to have. And so I just wonder how, Langdon in particular is going to diplomatically tiptoe around answers to those questions, because he's done a great job of it so far this offseason of saying a lot without saying much at all, right? At the same time, being that clearly very media trained individual that he is. But man, that's just going to be a really interesting puzzle, I think, this year. I'm not sure that I had in particular given the Ausar Thompson extension enough weight in my head as I was thinking about Ivey and Duren this offseason. And I know that's odd to admit here in September, but I'm thinking back on it now, and that's a big issue. It could be a big issue, depending.
Yeah, and even if you want to go further with it, you can go 2 seasons from now, and Ron Holland will be eligible. So, what are we expecting from Ron Holland to answer some of those questions? And when you are planning to give certain guys an extension, it limits what you can do with others, and other players might want to see or think they're worth more on the open market and want to take that chance. So I think overall there are some tough questions that the front office specifically is going to have to learn answers to over the season. I feel like, maybe they have their mind made up more than I think right now, but I think a lot of those questions will be answered this year. So I'm not sure we'll get concrete answers. And obviously, like, Langdon's not going to say, oh, we're going to extend Jaden Ivey. Like, we're just waiting to do it for whatever reason. Like, we won't know that until we know it. But yeah, there's just a lot of unknown outside of Cade, which, if there's going to be one question answered, I think that's the one that you want to be answered. But right now it's just about figuring everything else out around him.
All right, just for the benefit of the listener, next season, all right, the Pistons promised money that's going out. They've got Cade Cunningham, Isaiah Stewart, Duncan Robinson, Karis LeVert. Jaden Ivey is technically a restricted free agent. So too would be Jalen Duren. You have Ausar Thompson, Ron Holland, Paul Reed, Marcus Sasser, Bobby Klitman, and Chaz Lanier. All those guys are on the books next season as well. In 27-28, it is Cade, Isaiah Stewart on a team option, Duncan Robinson, Ausar Thompson as a potential restricted free agent, Ron Holland on a team option, Marcus Sasser still as a potential restricted free agent, and then Bobby Klitman and Chaz Lanier. Whew, sorry, I had a little cough there. So that is the immediate situation for the Pistons moving forward. All right, Blake. Last media day question that I wanted to ask you, because I don't know, you're more into the not necessarily like the style stuff, but like the performance things that go on around the NBA. So my two questions for you, because I baked two questions into one, is there one like player photo in particular that you are looking forward to seeing? And then they do a lot of the stuff for the like the entrances, right? Like the intros for the players for home games at media day. So like, is there something in particular that you would like them to do for these
Oh
player
boy.
intros
Oh
that
boy.
they need to get done on Monday?
That's a good question. I think if we're think I think he will because we've seen it, but I'm interested to see if Cade is gonna go into the year with the braids and everything. Like his I think we haven't seen that yet, at least from his like going into the year as you see his year one photo compared to year 2 and 3 and everything. But player intros.
Didn't he start next year with, or not next year? Didn't he start last season with the braids for the first few weeks? I
I
know he
don't
played
rem
with them. I don't think he
Yeah,
did
I think he,
photos.
like, switched at one point. So yeah, I mean, obviously, like, doesn't matter, but it's so because like, I love those comparisons because you can see how they've bulked up over and Giannis is obviously the big one that
Yeah, that one's
will
nuts. Yeah.
yeah, that one's and Cade won't be, like, that drastic, but it is a big change. I would love intros, and I don't think like we're gonna get this, but I wanted it in playoffs, and they sort of did some callbacks like with the intros in playoffs. I loved the back in like the going to work days with Chauncey and Ben in the intro videos, like at the end, they had Ben and I think Chauncey to a degree, like with the sledgehammer and it like broke the
Yeah.
opponent's
Like a
logo that
gong,
they were
right? Yeah.
playing. I would love for them to bring that back. I know it's not really like a going to work team, but it is. Some people have called it the back to work team. So I love to see them bring it back. I think we're seeing the NBA at large. So it's crazy to think all that stuff is already vintage, but we're seeing the Sixers bring back their black and gold and red jerseys, and the Wolves are bringing back like their tree jerseys from the KG
Yeah.
days. So I think we already saw the Pistons bring back teal, which wasn't that exact era, but I think we could see some like callbacks to those days.
Blake, it's because we're the age group that all this is marketed for now.
Yeah.
That we are the nostalgia. But for the only thing I would say on the like team intros, I'm cool if they do the sledgehammer thing. I would actually like the fire's always fun. That's a very Piston
Mhm.
thing, but they gotta get their own song. Like, yeah,
Okay.
I feel like the intro song, the final countdown, that was that era, and I think it was the tail end of the Bad Boys too. And then they went away from it. Like they gotta find something their own, make it a new era, that sort of thing. And then as long as we're talking about like vintage retro stuff from when we were younger, man, Charlotte, can we get those orange, the first edition of the Bobcats jerseys coming back? That orange, those were so nice. I loved
The
those. I
in the
mean, come
Hornets,
on.
like a Bobcat uniform, but
Yeah.
with Hornet, that would be pretty cool.
See, the problem is Charlotte doesn't like the Bobcats. But look, I like the Bobcats. They came around when I was just starting to be interested in basketball. So I was a big Bobcats guy. Give me those jerseys again. I would love to
Um,
own one of those like Jared Wallace ones.
Emeka Okafor, like
Raven Felton. Those teams had
yeah.
some interesting players.
Yeah, yeah, that's some like NBA lore, I guess. I'm thinking of when the Hornets moved to New Orleans and then with the Hurricane, they played in like Oklahoma City and Chris Paul was wearing like the Hornet type uniforms that said Oklahoma City, like all those like that was those like logos and everything. And we saw even the Raptors go back to that dinosaur with the basketball a little bit. So I'm happy that all that stuff seems to be coming back.
The only actual aesthetic I care about for NBA stuff is bring back those silk looking jerseys. Those were sweet, especially the baby blues there for the Denver Nuggets. Those were so
Do you think
nice.
they're like
The little
awful to
sheen,
play in
you
though?
know.
Like those have to
Oh, I don't
produce
care
so
about
much
that.
sweat.
Those guys make millions of dollars. They can be a little bit uncomfortable for our viewing pleasure. That's my opinion on that one.
True,
All right.
true. Yeah, I
Ooh,
and
I've
like
been
the Heat ones too. Everyone had those. I
yeah.
I I just feel like they're probably not practical anymore, but yeah, it is like
No.
a true era. And also I know we have our guy Caleb in the chat who's a Nuggets fan. Like it's still wild to me that like Carmelo Anthony in that era is now not like the best Nugget to wear number 15 all time.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
crazy.
That's gonna make for some really interesting jersey retirement practices sometime in the very near future. I don't know what they're gonna do with that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't know, but you can't Nikola Jokic has to wear number 15, so I don't know what you're gonna do.
Oh yeah, no, he can't change it. I mean, it's just top brass has to figure that one out. And so for anyone too young to know, go back and look up the Carmelo Anthony blue jerseys. This just had that little sheen to it. Like when I'm sure you can remember, like Miami was a big one. There were
Mhm.
just certain jerseys in that era that had a certain shine to them under the stadium lights. The Miami Reds in particular were really nice. I don't know what it was. I don't know what the fabric was, but all right, there you go. There's my style soapbox, Blake. That's all I've got. I got
I
nothing.
also I also like this is from that era too, and I remember it mainly with the Pistons, like the overly baggy warm up suits that they all had with like the rip off pants. Like those are great.
Oh, that was the thing. I mean, the baggy shorts too. Like I still got a bunch of them from like middle school, early high school. They're way too big for me now.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I know like baggy is definitely like back in style now, but I feel like that age it was definitely like a different type of baggy. Like everything
Oh
was
yeah.
so big.
So big, shorts going down to your ankles. I mean, it was a vibe. That's an interesting that's always interesting to think back on. Like
Yeah,
how did I ever go between the legs? You know, like how did I
it,
do that with that much fabric in the way? And I mean, AI was doing it, so it couldn't
yeah.
if they were figuring it out. All right, we got this interesting question here from Harrison Fagan. Says, what do you think is the most realistic record prediction for the Pistons this year? Do you expect another step forward, a plateau, or a step back?
Yeah, and shout out to Harrison, our guy at SB Nation for the question. So the Pistons won 44 games last year, like tripling their win total from a year before. No other team has done that before.
Will
Like we
they
were
triple their win total again?
if Adam Silver tries to get a ton of new games. But yeah, like you're not gonna see that jump again, obviously. And I think I think the way like Harrison using plateau is an interesting word here because even if the Pistons win 44 or somewhere between 40 and 43, I don't even know if that's necessarily a plateau because this group is going to look pretty different than they did a year ago. You still have your core pieces intact, but you have Jaden Ivey coming back. You have a full year of Asar Thompson. They'll have some stuff to figure out. And overall, they're still a very young group. I think they're probably the team in the East that is best set up for the future, which is crazy to say after a year ago. So I think what I'd be expecting in terms of just in general would be a step forward, but like I think that could happen, like you said, Wes, even if it doesn't happen in the win total. I think they could win a few more games than they did last year, especially when you consider the uncertainty in the East with all the injuries and everything like that. So if they do win more than 44 games like they did last year. I wouldn't expect it to be too much more. Like I'd put it somewhere in that 46 to 47 game range. I don't really think they're going to go out there and win 50 games. If they do, that's an incredible accomplishment. So overall, I think they're in good position to take a step forward, but it'll just be hard in terms of wins when you consider what they did last year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking back to what we've been doing the past few weeks with the floor and ceiling stuff. And I mean, if I'm going to pick like an unrealistically high but loosely plausible ceiling, it might be like 51, 52 wins. And that's not saying that I'm banking on that to happen. I think if I had to make an actual gamble, right? If I actually had to put money down on where I think the Pistons will be next year in terms of record, I'd say 44 to 46 wins. But, like you said, if things break their way, you could see it happening. You could see them getting up to 50 or just over. In terms of a floor, I don't think it's much lower than 44. I mean, Cade Cunningham is that dude. And I think that having a guy like that is a significant floor raiser in this league. When you've got a player that you could make an argument is top 3 overall player in the Eastern Conference, like I don't think that you're looking at a team that's going to really tank in terms of taking a step back. So I think their floor is pretty much where they were. What I will say is if they get 44 to 46 wins, it would not be the end of the world, and it wouldn't even be unreasonable to say that they're the 7th or 8th seed.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, if things break right in the Eastern Conference and you're looking at, like, I don't think the Pacers are going to be as bad as people think they are. I don't think Boston's going to be as bad as people think they are. But even if one of those two teams really drops off the edge of a cliff, you got Atlanta's making a jump up. Orlando's going to make a jump up. And we keep talking about the Philadelphia 76ers because, well, if they're healthy, you've got an MVP caliber player on that roster and a lot of really interesting guards that are there too. So there are 3. I mean, you could probably make an argument for the Hornets, though I'm not particularly confident, though I'm interested to watch them on League Pass this year. I'm not particularly confident they're going to take a huge leap forward. Regardless, there are, about 3 teams, 2 for sure, but possibly 3 teams that you could see legitimately leaping Detroit and not having it be the Pistons' fault. Right. Like it is not a detriment to the Detroit Pistons if the Orlando Magic leap up ahead of them in the standings. At this point, I'd say most people expect that. You could say the same thing for Atlanta. Atlanta's got a really good roster. If they leap Detroit in the standings, it's not the Pistons' fault, right? They're just very good. That's a very talented team. So that's kind of what I would say. I could see them taking a minor step forward, winning like 45, 46 games, but being in the play-in, and that makes it a little bit interesting how you get how you could theoretically get to the second round.
Yeah, and if they do end up in the play-in, like I don't think that's automatically a step back or a regression.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I think if that's where you do end up, you'd want to be in the 7-8 game, and that just makes it so you just have to win 1 game to get into the actual postseason. And that doesn't make it easy either. Like you have to play a number 1 team or a number 2 team, and that won't be an easy series. But with how well the Pistons played the Knicks, I think no matter who they play in the postseason, you can't just write them off. I mean, we have the whole season in front of us, so it's not like a lot of stuff can happen, but just in general, like the East is so open, I guess, which is good for the Pistons, but it could go either way, honestly. But just in general, I think where this team sits, like you have to look at the bigger picture a little bit, which isn't always easy as a fan to do, because I think they are playing the long game, definitely. Like Langdon and the rest of his front office are trying to build a sustainable winner, which is incredibly hard in the NBA. I think harder than pretty much any other league with with the cap and extensions and all of that considered. So in general, like, yeah, I think the only way we could say it's a step back is like if they miss the postseason in general, whether that's out of the play-in or if they're in the play-in and they don't get a postseason series out of it.
All right, Blake. So before we get into some of these combinations of players we think are going to be impactful this season, I kind of we've we've both been beating around this bush, and I don't know if we've necessarily said it yet. So I think now would be a good time to talk it through very quickly. Is Asar Thompson the second most impactful and important player on this roster? I mean, after Cade, of course.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think you could make arguments for a few different guys. Like the one that steps out aside from Asar is Jaden Ivey. Like, what's he going to look like when he's back? Is he going to take keep up what he did as a scorer before he went down? Is he going to take an additional leap? But I think Asar, since he returned last year, and when the Pistons really made the run that they did, he was the second best player on the team, even if he wasn't, even if the offensive piece was a bit tricky. I think that'll still be the case, but he's entering year 3. I think he's only getting better, and you can say that about a lot of guys on this team, but just his archetype is so rare across the NBA, and I think he really could take an additional step to, like, he's on the verge of being all defense, maybe that goes into a defensive player of the year, like most improved player. I think for him to be in most improved territory, it would have to come with some sort of an offensive leap. And I think that has to be a big question for JB Bickerstaff, mainly. Like, how are we going to get Asar more involved, create good opportunities for him in the offense? But I mean, honestly, like, if it was just a yes or no question, like, is Asar Thompson the most important player on the Pistons who's not named Cade Cunningham, I'd say yes.
Yeah, I would echo that as well. I mean, we just made the argument that Cade probably has an argument for being a top 3 player in the NBA's Eastern Conference. I would say that Asar Thompson, after this season, I'm expecting you could make the argument that you could say with your chest that he's one of, if not the best defender in the Eastern Conference. These guys like Asar Thompson don't come around all that often. I mean, obviously he's an incredible athlete, but the instincts he has defensively, the way he can move laterally, and the aggressiveness he plays with on that end at a premium position too. This has been a wing-driven league for I don't know how many years. I know Steph Curry's been running the show for a long time. You know, they have their dynasty over there, but outside of him, it's really wings and forwards that have been the ultimate drivers of success, or at least guys that have that type of body. So to have a player like Asar Thompson, who's not only that incredible and impactful as a defender, but is doing it against those guys in particular, I don't think you can talk enough about how important that's going to be for Detroit this year.
Yeah, and like, look at how important Jaden McDaniels has been for the Timberwolves. And I mean, different types of players, definitely, but Jaden McDaniels and Asar are often taking the main defensive assignment. So, like, he has been as important to the Wolves' success as the breakout from Anthony Edwards, as like Rudy Gobert also being the defender that he is in general. And yeah, the wings are the guys that make the money. I still don't think Asar is going to be in line for a max extension, mainly just because of like the offense. But I mean, the position he plays, those guys are guys that you try to draft. So credit to Troy Weaver for making that pick when he could have went a different way. Because yeah, it's hard to trade for those guys too, and hard to sign them as well. Like we saw, Nickeil Alexander-Walker was a big prize on the free agency market this year. So Yeah, I think the Pistons really need to focus on how he can grow and how he can make this extension question, which I think is already pretty clearly answered, but like how both sides can make it a sure thing.
All right, so to close out the show here today, and we're probably going to keep this one a little bit shorter, but wanted to ask about dynamic duos. So we've been kind of previewing, I guess, this for a couple of weeks now. We were meaning to do it last week, but we had to kick it over to this one. We're each going to have 3 pairs of players that we think could be vital to the Pistons' success this year, and the goal was kind of to not just do Cade Cunningham at every single level, because you could. Because Cade is the most important player on this team, right? You could say, well, the most important is Cade and Ivy. The second most is Cade and Asar. And you can just kind of go down the starting lineup like that. So we're trying to avoid things like that. But what we wanted to go was pairs of players that we thought were going to be vital for this season. Let's start with your 3rd ranked pair. All right, we'll go 3 up to 1. We'll kind of talk through both of ours and progress that way.
Yeah, so for my 3rd, I'm going to put Cade alongside Duncan Robinson. And mainly, like, I don't think that those two are going to play alongside each other for all of their minutes. But I think Duncan Robinson right now, where the roster stands, is has the most clear path to taking over most of the 3-point volume that we saw from Malik Beasley last year. And we saw how good playing alongside Cade was for Malik Beasley just as a player. It was could have been the best 3-point shooter in the league if Anthony Edwards didn't get up a ton of attempts in his last game in the regular season. I think Cade can do a similar thing for Duncan Robinson. And I don't necessarily think Duncan is going to come in and shoot 9 threes a game like Malik Beasley did and make them at the clip that Malik Beasley did, but he's going to be very important. And I think playing next to Cade could pay dividends for just like his career in general. I mean, he played alongside Jimmy Butler, but we've never seen Duncan Robinson outside of the Miami Heat, so we don't know what that looks like. And I think he could make a big impact there. So sort of a low profile one. And I'm not even sure if they'll play next to each other a ton, but I think when they do, it could be interesting and could help answer a lot of the questions that we have when you don't have Malik Beasley on this roster right now.
And it's not just Malik Beasley, right? It's also Tim Hardaway Jr. Like Cade made Tim Hardaway Jr.'s life quite a bit easier as well at points this season. And the Pistons really didn't get a direct replacement for both of those guys, right? You could say that that Duncan Robinson is replacing one of, or maybe he's replacing the combination of the two, but it's not like they brought in 2 pure off-ball gunners, right? Like they had last year. So I'm with you. I think that that's a great one. Cade and his ability to help shooters is probably going to have a pretty big impact on a guy like Duncan Robinson. And honestly, I bet that they play together more than people would expect. We saw Cade and Beasley get quite a few minutes together over the course of last season. So I could see this one actually being a fairly common occurrence. My third would be kind of a weird one off the cuff, but Ron Holland and Asar Thompson. And maybe this is me being selfish because I don't know how much these two are going to play together either. But man, that would be fun. It would just be really fun to watch those two guys play basketball together, especially on defense. I mean, the switchability that you have there, really 1 through 4 with those guys, the athleticism, the ability to get out and run. Ron's a little bit more aggressive as a scorer. Asar's a little bit better as a playmaker and passer. I mean, you could just imagine that being a terror in transition if one of them gets a steal and hits out on the break. That could just be a really fun pairing. And because I'm being selfish, I'm saying that it also will be an important pairing for the Pistons, because you know what? If you want to get a stop late in a game and you want some fireworks too, potentially on the offensive end, how about a front court of Ron Holland, Asar Thompson, and Isaiah Stewart? That's going to get you a stop.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and even if you want to look at them individually, if we don't think that a ton of they'll see minutes together frequently or for a lot in each game, like those are both going to be important guys to this team in general. We've already talked about Asar Thompson, but Ron Holland, we've talked about Jaden Ivey, Jalen Duren, Asar Thompson trying to figure out what they are, how they fit into the long term. Like Ron Holland, we're not talking about it as much, but this is a big year for him because he has this year, next year, then he'll be extension eligible. And if he's in line for an extension, it makes the rest of the questions a little bit more tricky. And I mean, he just had a good rookie year in general and was in a bit of a unique situation, like having a big role on a team that turned into a playoff team. So I'm excited to see what we have for him next year.
Real quick.
Yeah.
What would you think of a 5-man unit of Cade, Duncan Robinson, Ron Holland, Asar Thompson, Isaiah Stewart?
Let's try
does
it.
Does that get you going? Is that exciting? At least as exciting for you as it is for me, because that sounds awesome.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think at least you're going to see a lot of different rotations being like trial and error at the start. And I think that's an interesting one, like you said, to if you need to go and get a stop, but then if you're worried about giving up offense, like maybe we see Isaiah Stewart shoot more threes this year. You have Duncan Robinson in there who can obviously shoot the ball and Cade everything he does for the offense. So yeah, well, why not? Why not?
Is it possible that Isaiah Stewart is the shortest player in that lineup?
Is it? Where is he next to us?
I think, don't they list him at like 6'8"? I don't look. I love Stu. I don't believe that.
He is. Let me see. I just had something up with him. Where is? Yeah, he is 6'8", and Asar Thompson is 6'7".
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'll just be honest with you. I don't know about that.
Duncan Robinson is 6'7" also. So he's I guess.
And I think, don't they list Cade at 6'6", or is he 6'7" too?
He's 6'6", yeah.
You know, he probably had the braids when he got measured for that.
Yeah, he's tall, and Cade is just so like long too. I mean, you can say the same thing about Asar. So
and yeah, Stu, I mean, that guy's got pterodactyl arms.
Yeah, 100%. My second one is the big one, Cade and Ivy. I mean, I just think Ivy is going to be huge for this team, and I'm definitely acknowledging that Cade has been in my first two pairings. So I do not have him in my first, so I'm not I'm not cheating in that sense. But yeah, I think when you look at the moves the team made, and you don't have a clear, you think Jaden Ivey is essentially going to be your backup point guard. How is he going? Like, how will his role look differently when Cade is on the floor versus when it's off the floor? I mean, I think Jaden Ivey is going to have to be your main driver of offense outside of Cade Cunningham, and Ivy made a huge leap as a 3-point shooter before he went down last year. Does that continue? Does he take an even bigger step? Does he take a little bit of a step back? We'll see. But just in general, if you're talking about like pairings that are going to have to work well together, I think they have to be in the conversation.
Let's stick on this one for a minute, because they were actually my number one most important pairing. And like, look, I think if you just think back to last season on the closing stretch, how many more games might the Pistons have won if they just had one other guy that could go get a bucket or could go create a bucket, right? Where everything didn't have to be on Cade Cunningham's shoulders. Not that it's not going to be, it always will be, but it didn't have to be on Cade's shoulders. I wonder how much longer we might have seen Cade's legs stay under him back into the playoffs, right? He was definitely looked tired in that series against the Knicks, which credit to him for how well he played with those tired and heavy legs. But if you had a guy who could go create a look for himself or create a look for someone else, or maybe even to create a look for Cade, how much that might have helped Cade Cunningham maintain the level that we saw, or even maintain a certain level of efficiency that started to drop off at the end of the year. So like you look at this roster, Jaden Ivey is the only guy I think that can actually give you that, or that you think in theory could give you that. You could drink the Kool-Aid and say, hey, Ron Holland's going to take that big leap and he's going to be a stud scorer. But I'm as big a Ron Holland fan as you're going to find. And I just don't think that that's realistic to expect in year 2. Maybe if we're talking year 3, year 4, you could convince me that it's likely to happen. Even that, I don't know. But it's not this year, point being. It's not this year. So when you look at this team, like Tobias Harris is not anywhere near a 20-point-a-night guy. He's not that player anymore. We love Asar Thompson, but that lack of shooting is going to limit him. I don't think we want Jalen Duren to have the volume increase that would be required for him to be that type of scorer. So like it has to be Jaden Ivey, right? There's no other option. This all falls to his feet. So yeah, I'm right there with you. If we're looking at pairs of players that need to have not only an exceptional year, but need to play off one another well, like players that could be extremely helpful to each other in their success, especially offensively, since this is an offensive league, then, I mean, I had Caden Ivey number 1. So I don't think you could find a more important duo.
Yeah, 100%. I know you gave your number 1. Do you want to give your number 2?
Sure. Oh, okay. Because this is actually on theme. I can see yours as well. So this will be related. My number 2 was Asar Thompson and Isaiah Stewart. I think as you start to ramp up Asar Thompson's minutes, then we'll start to butt into that floor spacing issue more frequently. Asar Thompson did he actually, if you could look this up for me, I don't think he averaged 30 minutes a night last year. I believe he did in the playoffs, but they didn't have much of a choice by the time
22 and a half minutes in the regular season and same exact thing in the playoffs.
Oh, yeah. So he didn't even get up into the playoffs. Okay. So, yeah, I think you're looking at Asar Thompson needing to get more minutes this year. As Asar Thompson gets more minutes, we start to have that concern with the floor spacing for more minutes a night. And that means he's playing next to Cade for more minutes a night. And when Cade and Ivy are out on the floor, spacing's paramount. So I think that Asar Thompson and Isaiah Stewart are actually going to see the floor a lot together. And this has quite a few benefits. 1, Isaiah Stewart can shoot. I think he's going to shoot the ball this year. But 2, the defense that those two guys could implement when they're both out there together, I think could be really exciting for Pistons fans. Asar Thompson out there on the wing, being switchable. Isaiah Stewart kind of cleaning up the back end, being that enforcer that everything gets funneled to. They're both pretty good shot blockers. I know Asar Thompson is fantastic at stealing the ball as well. And they both play defense like they're 2 people, not 1 person, right? These were both of those guys, I think, had an argument, if not for context situations, being on one of those all defense teams last season. So I expect that to continue. And if those 2 guys can be that impactful on defense when they're out there together, while Isaiah Stewart is also helping to solve that shooting issue that we have with Asar Thompson being a 15 to 20% 3-point shooter on low volume, I think that's going to be huge for the success of the team.
Yeah, I think when you add the Isaiah Stewart into it, it's super, super interesting because we saw his 3-point volume drop dramatically last year from 3.8 attempts per game in the year before to just 0.7 last year. So I don't think you'll see him in that range that he was 2 seasons ago now, but I think it'll definitely go up from where he was a year ago. And I mean, if it doesn't, it tells you a lot on how JB Bickerstaff sees what he wants out of Isaiah Stewart. But in general, you don't want Isaiah Stewart out there as a key part of your offense by any means. You want him to be the defender that he is, and also like be able to get rebounds and buckets on on clean looks as well. But yeah, I think overall you'd just sort of be giving something up if he's not shooting it at least a little bit more than he did last season. And yeah, it's super important when he plays next to Asar Thompson. Um, my number one was sort of similar, pretty similar. Asar Thompson and Jalen Duren. It just goes back into that floor spacing thing, and I'm just picking the two non-shooters that are going to start for this team. You're not going to have Tim Hardaway Jr. starting next to them anymore, who was helping a little bit in that starting lineup when he started. So we think it's going to be Cade, Ivy, and Asar, Tobias, and Jalen Duren. So how is JB Bickerstaff going to make that clear hole a little bit less exploitable for opponents? I think it's hard because it's not going to come through either of them shooting the three. But what are you going to do to get Asar clean looks at the rim, back cuts, everything like that? And we saw Jalen Duren have a great year offensively and everything he brings for Cade as a lob threat. But I think going forward, as more teams get more looks at the Pistons, they already saw what they did last year. How are you just like, I don't want to say hide because you can't really hide them offensively, but how are you going to get them to contribute to the offense? And if it doesn't work, it tells you something that you need to make a big change.
Genuinely, I'm expecting, well, maybe not expecting, I'm hoping that we see JB Bickerstaff get a little creative here. There is a way you could set up this 9-man rotation where Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren are playing a lot of minutes together, and Asar Thompson and Isaiah Stewart are playing a lot of their minutes together. There's a way you can do it. Right. It would require upping Isaiah Stewart's minutes just a little bit. He was a tick under 20 per game last year. If you could get him up to maybe 22, and you're talking about maybe 16 or 17 of those minutes coming next to Asar Thompson, which is fairly reasonable. You can do it, right? There's a way to do it if you kind of rotate Duren along with Ivy and kind of ping pong those two guys back and forth, which, I know that that's going to stick Ron Holland out there, and maybe you've got similar concerns with him as a shooter, but personally, I don't. I think that the shot's going to look a little bit better, and Ron Holland's a pretty underrated cutter. So for all the reasons that fans might think Asar and Duren could work, because Asar is a pretty smart offensive player and puts himself in good spots, you say a lot of the same things about Ron Holland. It's just he could shoot the ball a little bit better. So that would be a fun, pseudo bench lineup if you're trotting out a lineup of like Ivy, LeVert, Robinson, Holland, and Duren, right? And that also lets you spread out those starters a little bit further too, which is impactful off the against other opponents' bench unit. So I don't know if JB is going to get that creative, but I hope that he does. He does. But even with that, right? Like you're right, there are going to be plenty of minutes where Asar's out there with Duren, and they have to figure it out. They have to.
Yeah, I think mainly like why I put this one at the top is because the conversation going into last year is, are the Pistons going to play Asar Thompson and Jalen Duren together? And the general consensus was like, no, please do not do that. And they did, and it worked out I mean, obviously it still had the misses and the issues that we all know are going to happen, but they made it work at times. And I think it'll be a little bit more difficult to continue making it work. There's a way, but like you said, it has to be creative. And if it's just such a glaring like need, I guess, or hole for this offense, you have to make a change, whether it's starters or just personnel in general, whether it's through trade or whatever it might be.
Hey, if any locker room's going to figure it out, I feel like it might be this locker room. These guys are all seem extremely tight and close together. So
Mhm.
if you got to rely on team chemistry and creativity to overcome a limitation like that, or just a practical constraint on on this case, offensive side of the ball, they've got a shot, right? They've got a chance because of that chemistry that they have. So yeah, I like it. I like it.
Yeah, yeah. Why not? I mean, I think we're gonna see it, and I think it's gonna be a talking point again. And
Of course.
neither of them are gonna magically turn into
Right.
honestly anything close to league average 3-point shooters. Jalen Duren's not even gonna shoot threes, so
Yeah, you wouldn't
um,
wanna ask Duren
yeah,
to, and it's not like you can just use some pixie dust for Sar Thompson to
yeah.
develop that as a skill, when the free throw shooting's also not good.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. So it's gonna be an important one. I have confidence in Cade Cunningham and JB Bickerstaff for that matter to make the I guess like glaring like holes that it fill like a little bit less glaring, but it'll be a challenge, and you don't want to make that challenge too big for your star player.
Agreed. I'm just looking forward to media day. No,
Yeah,
I've been looking forward to it all week, but now I'm very excited because I wonder if that's going to come up. Right? There's got to be some journalist that's going to ask about floor
I'm
spacing.
sure.
It was such a big
Sure.
deal the year before, so it's got it. And we know, I mean, plenty of we haven't talked about the Lions at all, but there are plenty of reporters that get into that media room that ask interesting questions. So I mean, it's not our guy Omari or any of the official awesome beat reporters that we have here in Detroit, but some of the other guys, maybe they ask something weird and we get a fun response.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm trying to find out what the Pistons media day is. I think all of them are on Monday, the 29th,
Yes,
right?
it is on Monday. I don't know any of the times or anything like that, but you guys can look forward to seeing that all kind of playing out on Monday. I'm sure they're going to start pushing out some marketing and media for the media day itself sometime over this weekend, and yeah, that'll be the real start of
Mhm.
basketball coming back. Right, that's going to be a good time. But Blake, I think we got to leave it there. My throat's running out of steam. I'm running out of the ability to get these speeches out without coughing into my microphone. So I think we got to call it.
No, man, shout out to you for powering through. Yeah, next time we record, we'll have all of media day to discuss, and then camp will be right there, and then preseason is right on the horizon. Like preseason hockey already started, which shocked me the other
Really?
day when I was going, I think probably to flip on the Lions game, like I had to scroll past the preseason hockey game, and I was like, wow,
Red Wings
that's
going to be any good? I
I
don't
have
follow
no
hockey.
idea. I have
All
no
right,
idea.
some listener can let us know.
Yeah, yeah, but Wes, shout out to you again. Hope you feel better. Shout out to everyone for joining and throwing in all the questions and talking points and everything. Reminder, you can call our phone line to ask a question and hear your voice on the show. The number for that is 313-355-2717. Special thanks to Sean Corp, the managing editor of Detroit Bad Boys, for supporting the show. And also special shout out to Harrison Fagan, who asked the question, who like leads SB Nation's NBA coverage. Shout out to you for making everything run at large as well and supporting the show. And shout out to you guys, listeners, again, for all the great questions and talking points tonight. We'll catch you next week, whether on your commute or live with us on YouTube. We can't wait to talk more Detroit basketball with you all.